today's video is we will going to talk about what is dichotomous K. So in this video, you can learn some most important information on how to use dichotomous K. So what is a dichotomous K? So other studies and experts utilize the dichotomous K to distinguish and order object. For example, individuals, creatures, plants, microorganisms, and so on, into explicit classification dependent on their attributes. It's the most ordinarily utilized type of order or sort of distinguishing through K utilized in science at its streamlines recognizing obscure living beings. So, basically, it is a technique used to recognize an animal types by addressing a progression of inquiries dependent on differentiating highlights. So, example, actual qualities that have two potential results. So, dichotomous signifies partition into two sections. Subsequently, the dichotomous K consistently present two decisions dependent on the critical qualities of that creature in each progression. By typically choosing the correct decision at each stage, the client will actually want to recognize the name of the living being toward the end. The further you portion the K, the more you find out about the example you are attempting to recognize. So when making a dichotomous K, both subjective, for example, actual properties, for example, how the living being looks, what shading it is, and so forth. So, and quantitative, for example, the quantity of legs, weight, tallness, and so on. Factors are thought of. So, it tends to be done in both graphical, as a stretching flow chart, or composed configuration, or arrangement of combined gluclimation coordinated successively. So frequently, they are utilized to distinguish plant and creature species, despite the fact that it tends to be utilized to order any item that can be recognized by a bunch of noticeable attributes. So, what is dichotomous K utilized for? So, a dichotomous K is typically utilized for, first is distinguishing and sorting living beings. So, next is assessing understudies with understanding harder logical ideas. So, lastly is coordinating a lot of data to make ID of a creature a lot simpler. So, the more effective method to make a dichotomous K, so the first stage is less down the qualities. So, the first stage, focus on the example you are attempting to relate to your dichotomous K. So, run down the qualities that you can take note. For instance, you are attempting to arrange a gathering of creatures, or you may see that some have feathers though others have legs, or some long tails and others don't. So, in stage 2, organize the qualities all together. So while making your dichotomous K, you need to begin with the most broad qualities first. So prior to moving to the more explicit one, so it assists with having recognized the more self-evident and more subtle differentiating attributes among the example prior to making your dichotomous K. So in stage 3, divide the examples. So you can utilize explanation. For example, has feathers and no flams, or question that is have feather. To isolate your example into two gathering, the main separation ought to be made on the most broad trademark. So in stage 4, divide the example significantly further. In light of the following differentiating trademark participation of the example further. So for instance, first you may have gathered your creature as have feathers and have no quills. Where case the ones where flams can be arranged as birds, while you can additionally partition the ones that have no quills as having hide and having no hide. So keep on pursuing your example by posing enough inquiries until you have distinguished and named every one of them. So, stage 5, draw a dichotomous K chart. You can either make a book, based on dichotomous K, or a graphical one where you can even utilize pictures of the example you are attempting to recognize. So in the last stage, which is the stage 6, so test it out. Whenever you have finished your dichotomous K, test it out to check whether it works. Zero in on the example you are attempting to distinguish, and go through the inquiries in your dichotomous tree to check whether you get it recognized toward the end. So in the event that you think the inquiries in your dichotomous case should be improved, make the essential changes. So here are some best practice to remember using dichotomous case. So first, think about just a single trademark at a time. So second is utilize morphological or noticeable qualities however much you can. So lastly is, utilize significant attributes by isolating the organic entities in the first place, and utilize lesser or more subtle qualities to partition them into more modest gathering. So, next is when composing differentiating articulation depend on comparable word design. For example, have feathers and don't have feathers. So, next is be explicit in your assertion and try not to rehash similar attributes. So, next is use question that leads to yes or no answer instead of explanation. So, in the last part of my video, you can see some of the example of dichotomous case. So, please watch.